sea of faces and green chairs and laughter.
That's a good thing.
Tina, is that your dad?
Yes, it is.
Well, welcome everyone. We are the Become Forum, and I've seen a lot of new faces, so I guess I'll give you just a little bit of, I'm Colleen Johnston, and I'm a therapist in Hall. And the end of last year, in the fall, I just felt kind of overwhelmed that I had a long wait list, and I knew that there were a lot of people that were in need of mental health care, not just waiting at my door, but many, many doors and clinics. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a place where the public could come for free and feel less stigmatized and feel like you have a place to belong. I just saw Jim's face and it made me get choked up. That's why the Kleenex are right there. So, welcome. And the Become stands for belonging, education, community, outreach, mental health, and emotional well-being. And this is a small team of us that are trying to help the public feel that connection and that you're not alone. So in December, we did our first Become Forum, and the topic was suicide. And that was a success. We had quite a number of people come, and we were live streaming that one. Today we're not live streaming, but we are videotaping it, and hopefully tomorrow we'll get this posted on my YouTube channel, so you can always go back to it and you can share it with your friends and family or anybody that you think could benefit. And right after we did the suicide forum, I got a few requests to do the next one on grief, and that's why we're here tonight. Let me quickly introduce our team. They're going to be speaking tonight. We have Maddie Wells right here. She's a student in Nazareth. We have Tina Zapatas. She's a licensed clinical social worker. Yeah, feel free to applaud. It's okay. We have Mackenzie Van Sickle. She's a social work student at CUCA. And we have Lindsay Johnston. She's my daughter, and she is our technical guru. So that is our core Become Forum team. And tonight we also have special presenter Linda Kuhn over here. And Linda, thank you. You were the first person to say, I'd like you to do one on grief, and I'd like to be a part of it. So thanks for getting us started here. Tonight we hope to cover quite a few different topics. A lot of what we're talking about is personal stories, personal experiences, and we just hope that this is a place where you can feel you're not alone, that it's okay to not be okay, that grief kind of comes and goes with waves, and you're going to be learning a little more later on about how trauma can really snag grief from flowing naturally. So we don't have all the answers at all. In fact, last weekend, our little team was pulled together and we were talking about what we were going to be discussing tonight, and we realized more grief was bubbling up, and what we thought was healed kind of isn't all the way healed, or a section is, and then something else popped up. So we truly don't have all the answers, but we've got you covered with tissue, and it's okay. If there's emotions, please feel free to cry if you want to. You're very in good company if you do that. Just so you know, the bathroom's down the hall to the left, second exit sign down there. The first, well, we're gonna hit right off the ground running is an interview that Maddie and I did, and we taped it, pre-recorded it. We thought we were gonna have to wear masks tonight, and last time, Maddie was real soft-spoken. So that's why this is pre-recorded. And it's about a 13-minute video of Maddie's experience. Hi, Maddie.
Hi.
So this is our second Become Forum, and I really appreciate your willingness to be part of this. Any feedback that you got from the first one at all?
All good feedback. I think people are looking forward to our future events. So.
Awesome, great. Well, today's topic is on grief, and I really appreciate your willingness to talk about it a little bit. And the reason I asked you, because you're up close and personal, you know too well about grief from a very young age. So, if you're comfortable, you can tell a little bit about, because we're talking about your mom, Connie. So, maybe starting with her diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the grief process started like even before she passed away, like when she started getting sick. So grief isn't just like dealing with the loss of a loved one; it's dealing with like the loss of someone that you know too. So like she started getting sick and not being like the person that I know. And then you're young too, and it's like you don't know how to deal with that. So.
So the audience doesn't know about her illness, so maybe talk a little bit about her illness.
Yeah, so she had MS, and that progressed into PML, which is a brain disease, progressive brain disease, and she slowly lost her ability to walk and move on her own and get independent. So, and it just kept progressing, and that's how she passed. So, it happened
Sorry,
over
it's
the
hard
course
to
of
hear.
2 years.
It was blasting and then it got
Mm-hmm.
quiet. Didn't she have her diagnosis when she became pregnant with you?
She had MS prior to
It's hard to turn it up when your hands are shaking.
having me.
Yes.
She had that like when she started going out with my dad and everything. She's had MS for a while.
Yeah, so your whole life.
But that didn't really affect her in a way that was noticeable to me as a kid. Like she walked and talked and moved and did everything mom could, drove, cooked, and like it didn't mean anything to me that she had MS.
How old were you when things started changing with her physical abilities?
Maybe 10, 11, maybe somewhere in there.
Yeah. And how old were you when she passed away?
13.
So it was only like 3 years.
3 or 4. I might have been younger. Yeah. But she passed away in 2016. Even like going on 6 years now, like there's still grieving to do. You know what I mean? It's a lifelong process.
Absolutely. And I guess I was curious, you chose to get into the social work field. Do you think the experience that you've gone through has impacted your choice of?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I got kind of thrown into therapy because of all of that, and I didn't have great experiences with it, and being so young and being pushed into therapy when I wasn't necessarily the most willing participant in it because I was confused, and also just not having a good first experience with a therapist, it made me want to be better for other people. So,
Sorry for your experience.
yeah.
But your motivation, like you want to take something negative and turn it into something better for
Yeah.
other people.
And my first experience with therapy just made me feel like I was doomed to be depressed about it forever. It just felt like, oh, you just experienced a really traumatic thing as a really young kid. You're not really gonna get over this. Are you depressed? Let's get you on something. And I'm like, what if this is just a bump in the road and I need to like get over it? You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I want to deal with this forever.
Yeah.
In the sense that like I'm not gonna get over it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so part of our forum tonight is kind of giving people more of an idea of what to do to support somebody. Or, you know, lots of times people are worried about, I don't know what to say, and sometimes just not saying anything but being present is helpful. So I guess you're kind of an expert in the negative sense, which sucks.
Yeah,
But can you give some, like, not names or anything, but like specific messages that were not helpful, and then maybe if you heard other things or experienced other things that were more hopeful for you?
I think just looking at someone, like if you have a loved one or a friend or someone who is experiencing loss, not just looking at that as face value, like, man, they lost someone, they must be really upset about it, which they are, but like, I don't know, I went to therapy and it was just like, oh man, your mom died, that really sucks, you must be X, Y, and Z, and just like checking the boxes, like, nobody knows what someone's going through, and just treating the person like the loss that they went through, like, oh, I just lost someone, instead of being like, what can I do for you? Like, that really sucks, and I'm sorry, what do you need from me? Instead of just being like, yeah, it's really sad. Like, I know it's sad.
Yeah. So it sounds like checking the boxes, the therapist was telling you how they imagined that you felt, as opposed to maybe being,
Yeah.
what kind of questioning or statements might have been helpful for you back when you were, how old were you? Was it,
13.
that's when you started therapy, or was it even
Oh, it was
before?
prior to that.
Yeah.
11. But, I don't know, just, obviously you know that someone's upset, and you don't need to tell them, oh, my friend sucks. Like, I already know that. Just asking, like, I don't even know, because it's so different for everybody,
Yeah.
depending on who you lose and how old you are, or like how it happened. It's
How about
just,
something like, tell me about what's it like right now for you?
yeah, or like, not just assuming that you know exactly how they're feeling.
Yes.
Or, I don't know, just making assumptions about your relationship with that person, or how it's impacting you, or how you're responding based on face value things, like how old you are, or like your relationship with them, just like assuming, oh, you're like 12 or 13, and
Yeah.
you're a kid, and you don't,
Yeah,
I
so
don't know.
projecting, I think that's called projection, where
Yeah.
you're projecting your own assumptions or your own unhealed grief or other experiences, projecting that onto somebody, as opposed to meeting the person. Well, I can only imagine what's it like for you right now. And how about, do you want to talk about your mom, or do you want to avoid talking about your mom now?
I can talk about her. It's like in real life, like day to day, or like right now.
No, day to day.
Day to day, it doesn't bother me. I think I've gotten to the point where I'm happy to talk about her because she's an important person to me. It doesn't really make me like 4 years ago maybe it would have brought me to tears to like bring her up. So like it's a long process.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I'd like to be able to talk about her if people have questions.
Yeah, I think that's a hang up that people have, is they're so scared they don't want to make somebody uncomfortable or bring them to tears, that they don't want to talk about the person that has died.
It's always important to ask. I mean, it varies from person to person. I can go on all day about it, you know, like it doesn't really affect me that much anymore, but other people, that's not the case.
Yeah, yeah. Well, can I tell you a little bit about my first memory with your mom?
Of course.
It was when you and Lindsay, my daughter, who's actually doing the filming right now, you guys didn't know you, didn't know Connie, and we were at the kindergarten like testing. So you guys hadn't even started kindergarten. It was in the summer before kindergarten, and you were being tested in separate rooms, I think. But the parents were in this like conference room, and it was Lindsay's dad and me and Connie at this big table, and like, hi, and then you kind of started doing small talk, and she was very sweet. She had real long hair then, and then you came bounding in, and you guys looked like little clone. You were a clone of her with your long hair and your blue eyes and cute little thing, and she was just so like happy to see you back and excited for you. And little did we know, you guys became friends, and we had all the different shared memories with scouting and coming over and all the play dates and all that. And now here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think your mom. How do you think your mom would feel about you now and what you're doing now?
I think she would be happy. You think about it, she's missed out on so much. Like, it feels like it's been a long time, but at the same time, it feels like it was yesterday. And when you really think about, 2016 was almost 6 years ago since she passed. So much has happened in my life since then, She doesn't know that I graduated high school or had my first boyfriend or started driving or got into college or got a job. Like, she's missed out on so much. Or vacations that we go on, and it's just, you really think about it,
Yeah.
Like, she has no idea who I am right now, but I think she would be happy.
Yeah. It's not, I can hear the groove right now. She's missing out on it, and you're missing out on her being part of those things with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like she would just be happy. I think she'd be super proud. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add, just for people's awareness, or?
Everybody has a different situation, and every situation is unique. I think mine's really a unique situation, but I'm not the only one who had a loss in a really weird kind of way at such a young age. I mean, everybody's different, and just be a friend for people. Don't assume things, or I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of gossip that goes with death, and that makes me mad. And
Yeah.
just being transparent with someone instead of just assuming they're like, oh, I wonder what happened to that, or wonder how things ended. It's not your thing to gossip about or question about. You can have those conversations with the people that are close to you and that went through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing that people don't talk about a lot.
Yeah, I think we touched on that at the first Become Forum on suicide, because one of the moms that was sharing information that really annoyed her that people were making rumors about her son. So it's kind of like common courtesy and boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So right, if you're super close, to be with concern, tell me what you want to share about this. But if you're not that close, mind your own business.
Keep it to yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people don't bring that to the surface and talk about it, but it's kind of that small town gossip. Yeah, that could be hurtful. All right. Well, thanks, Maddie.
You're welcome.
So after we recorded that, Maddie had some time to reflect, and she's gonna speak up louder than that turned out anyway. So help me to welcome Maddie.
Hello again. I had some more time to think about some things that I didn't necessarily touch on here. And I want to thank Cal again for giving everyone this space to share. I think it's really important to talk about these things. I think one emotion that a lot of us deal with in grief that we don't talk about a lot is the feeling of relief that some people get. And I just want to share a little bit about that through my experience. When we left the hospital after my mom passed, I felt relief when we stepped outside. And it was like this weight had been lifted, and I was mad about it. I'm like, why do I feel relief about this? Like, I shouldn't be feeling like good feelings about my loss. And I loved my mom and wondered why I would ever feel that. And looking back after all this time has passed, I think the relief was more about the end of her suffering. And I think a lot of people feel that. When you have a loved one who has been suffering for so long, you might feel some relief when they pass because you think they're in a better place. Had she not passed away that night, she would go back home to a life that wasn't really hers anymore. She didn't have control of her body or her day or the people who interacted with her to take care of her. And in some ways, the mother I had and the person she was no longer who either of us recognized. She wasn't who she was before either. I think grief begins long before someone dies if they're sick like that. Like, they slowly become someone you don't know. And although her death was sudden and it happened out of the blue, I think it was her time. And she had been fighting something that was frankly very undefeatable and incurable, and she was never going to win that battle, and I think she was finally coming to terms with that. So when you feel relief, I feel like you struggle with a lot of guilt by feeling that relief, and I think it's important for anyone who's experienced a loss and felt that relief and the guilt that comes with it, that you're not the only one feeling that. You might feel like you are because we don't talk about that feeling as much as the others. But it doesn't mean that you love them any less. It just means that you found solace in them finally being at peace. And like I said, grief is a lifelong process, and you're going to feel so many different emotions going through it. And if relief is one of those, then it's just part of the course, I think. I don't think that makes you a bad person. I think they're all necessary, and I don't think anyone should have to feel guilty for feeling those things. So I just wanted to share that in case anybody's been feeling that in their grief journey. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. You did a great job. Okay, so just like we did at the suicide forum, I like to call it pendulate or titrate. So we've been very much in the feelings and the emotions. And now I want to kind of help bring us over to, I'm going to be teaching a little bit and more of that prefrontal cortex brain. So you're still going to be feeling emotions, but we're going to be learning a little bit here. So when I was trained in EMDR, which we're going to get into that later, but it's a very effective type of therapy that helps people heal from trauma. When I was trained in that, I learned that there are 4 basic negative human emotions and there are 4 basic positive human emotions. And I think in therapy, and even as humans in general, we kind of tend to gravitate towards the negative ones, or the ones we pay attention to. And they are mad, sad, fear, and disappointed. And the positive ones I have up here: love, joy, pride, and calm. And I want to give you a little, what I learned that helped me understand this concept. So kind of show of hands if you can relate to this. You could do something or like present or do something out of your box, out of your comfort zone or whatever, and you might get showered with compliments. You might get 20 compliments, and then you get 1 criticism. Are you going to pay attention to all the compliments? Or are you going to pay attention to the criticism? Who here can say, yeah, I'm going to pay attention to the criticism? That's the one that you're going to focus on. Yeah. Well, good news. That's part of the way we're designed. It's a survival mechanism. And once I learned that makes so much sense to me. Here's my little story about like a little cave family, okay? Prehistorical family. Maybe not that prehistoric, I don't know. So they're the cave guy and his family, and it's like a night like that. It's warm. It's like today, sun, and they have some food, and they're by the water, and the kids are playing, and all this great stuff. And all of a sudden, he can see the tall grass moving, and saber-toothed tiger is lurking in the grass. So he quick grabs his spear, and he's like, oh. Does he care that it's gorgeous out? Does he care that, oh yeah, we got food for tonight? No, none of that matters. What matters is there's a threat in the grass, and all this is going to go away if I don't attend to the saber-toothed tiger. Same thing, that's our reptile brain, or that's the trauma part of our brain, the brain stem, amygdala area. That's on alert all the time, and it's a good thing. That's what keeps us surviving, and we don't even have to think about it. It's like, whoa! Like, you know, if somebody dropped a book, we'd all be like, whoa! You just do that. So once we understand that, and then you get a whole bunch of compliments and one criticism, you can go, okay, reptile brain, calm down, like, let's get a little, and it takes a while. And I talk about being flooded with, like, those negative emotions. It's survival stuff. So it takes a while to get out of that survival mode. But what I'd like to talk to you about tonight is stretching our window of tolerance for the good stuff. And we're going to give you some solid ideas on how you can do that. And it takes practice. If we're very familiar with being anxious or mad, or, you know, that's so easy to get on that pathway. But if we're not so used to these, and, you know, Maddie's talk kind of highlighted that, where she started, so when we're in our window, that means we can think and feel and act all at the same time. So what we want is a nice big window. If we go out of our window of tolerance, we either hyper arouse and kind of get anxious or agitated or freaking out, hypervigilant, or we go out the other side, which is shut down, hypo-arouse, avoid. So what Maddie was talking about, she started to feel some relief. So maybe she started to feel like one of, these are the headings, but there's nuances that kind of go under those. So you might have felt calm, a little bit calmer. And as soon as you started to feel that, bam, nope, you're supposed to feel guilty, like, I'm bad. So that's an example of why it's hard to stretch the window. We're not used to being in it, or we have those negative messages, the shoulds or whatever they are, that kick us right out of it. And what I help my clients that I work with to understand, let's slow down and notice when we're feeling the good stuff. And especially people that have a trauma history, boy, it's hard to feel and notice and stay in them, because you feel like it's not safe. It's not safe to stay in one of these, especially if there's a saber-toothed tiger that's been circling ever since childhood, and sometimes he pounces. So it's important to ground, to look around, know that, okay, nope, there's no saber-tooth. Maybe I can stretch this. That was taken on Canandaigua Lake at Kershaw. This was the first paddleboard group I ever pulled together, and we had a yoga instructor, and at the end we were all playful and falling in and losing our balance, and at the end though, she had us all just look down the lake and feel your senses, feel how warm the water was, smell that lake air, look around, you know, and she encouraged us to, like, capture it and tuck it away, like heart center. And we really, like, pictured that, because on a terrible cold February day, you can remember that. You can go, oh, remember that joy, remember that calm when I was out on the lake. So that's an example of how we can capture those moments and really give them intention and attention. So feel free to take a picture of the screen if you want. I just kind of pulled together ways to stretch our window of tolerance for positive emotions. And the first step is to go, oh, this is love I'm feeling, or this is joy, or this is calm, to identify it. Then you'll allow yourself to feel it, and describing it, like I said down at the lake, we were describing our senses. Boy, the water feels warm. And what's it feel like inside? I feel like an expansion in my chest, or I feel like, oh, my shoulders just dropped. Really noticing your body too, not just your surroundings. So it's outside of you and inside of you. And you can say it to yourself, and it's really cool if you share it with another person. There's power in that. And that's like our connection. There's many different ways to capture those moments. Flash. So everybody knows about journaling, and sometimes I think journaling gets overwhelming for people. So Tina and I are going to share two similar but different ways to capture, of course, pictures and many other creative outlets. So in DBT, which is a type of cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavior therapy, Marsha Linehan, who invented that therapy, she talks about piggy bank moments, and that's where you're like capturing some cool thing that happened. It can be so small, like somebody says hi to you on the street, or like a cool dream or anything like that. You write it down and you put it in a piggy bank, and it's there for safekeeping. Well, I took my old mason jar, and of course I put monarchs on it, and I made my own, and I actually did this in 2020, which was cool that I did it in 2020, because who knew what was going to end up happening in 2020. So you can get these cute little colored tablet thingies at Walmart, and as the year went on, if something neat happened, or some like cool connection, like I'm saying, one of those feelings, or with whatever, you get the picture, I don't need to drill it in your head. I would just jot it down quick. It's not like you gotta go write a book. I just jot it down, put it in here. So what I did on New Year's Eve, I gathered my family and I read them all. And then again, we got to stretch and feel and remember those good moments. And sometimes you cry, or you laugh, or you roll your eyes. And then I put them all in an envelope that said 2020, and I still have them. I got them in a drawer because they're so important, and I don't want to forget the good stuff when things aren't so good. And then Tina, you have a very creative. Why don't you come up?
Thank you. So, you guys are going to hear a little bit more about my story later on. But, so when it comes to grief, so I lost my mom in 2014, and I wanted a way that I could still kind of communicate with her. When I have those little moments, kind of like Cal was saying, the positive moments, the moments I might need her, even the moments that aren't great, I wanted to be able to feel like I could still share them with her. Like I used to call my mom all the time, Mom, this happened, or hey, what do you think about this? I talked to her every day. So I don't even know where I got this idea. It was probably on Facebook or something that was like, hey, this might be something that you can do that might help with your healing process. So I had an old jar from one of those, big candles that you can get at Walmart or Yankee Candle. And I took out all the wax stuff, and inside, I don't have it now because I used all of the pages out of my little notebook. But I had a little notebook similar to what Cal was sharing that I kept in here, and then I had a pen. And what I did is I decorated it. You can see Best Mom, with some flowers. She loved flowers. And then her favorite prayer was the Serenity Prayer. So this was like my mom jar. That's what I called it. And I always kept it next to me, like on the stand at night. When I was winding down, I would write like little messages to her. So the neat thing, I don't know if you guys can really see, I did this There's little tiny notes, but there's hundreds of them. I did this for years, mostly the first year, and I kept it out. And kind of the neat little thing that happened too was that other people would ask, that would come to the house, what is that jar? What is that? You know, explain it to me. And I would explain that to them, you know, what this was. And, you know, like when my sister-in-law came over and watched our animals when we were on vacation, she wrote a little note to my mom. I haven't read it, I don't know what it says, but it's in there. And my husband has done that, other people who've been over the house have done that. And it's just a nice way to be able to feel like you're still connected, you know, with that loved one, even though they're not with you physically, but their energy is always with you, you know, in your heart, in your mind, in your soul. So this might be something that might be helpful for some of you folks, or if you know somebody who's lost someone, this might be helpful for them to kind of silently heal without feeling like they have to share it with everybody. But they can share it with everybody if they want to as well. So, yeah. Thanks. You?
And then the last column is really taking action so we can do it again. So if it's enjoyable and it's connecting and it feels good, I like to say let's put a stake in the ground. So if for me running is very therapeutic, I'll sign up for a race month out so I know I'm going to be able to achieve it and it's enjoyable. And with running too, the consistent practice. So whatever it is, it doesn't, physical activity, getting outside, those kinds of things are really, really good for feeling better. And to be, once we're consistent with it, then it's going to be something that you're going to look forward to, you're going to miss if you don't do it. And resourcing is, we don't have to talk about that too much, but I like to call it an internal resource. So thinking about times that, how did I get through that? Instead of looking at the negative, wow, how did I do it? What were my resources? We have so many amazing resources that we might not even really put our attention to because we're like in the survival mode. All right. All right, so this is very, very powerful. And we're going to listen to this song, and then we're going to take a quick break. But talk about creativity. So Isaac Scott is a graduate of Marcus Whitman, and he graduated in,
2018.
2018. And he and my son are really close friends. And when Isaac was 16, his mom passed away very unexpectedly. And in 2018, Isaac had written this, produced it, and rapped it. He raps it himself. So I'm just amazed at his talent, and I really invite you just to sit back and listen to Isaac's song.
Stuff. We love stuff, and there's some really great stuff out there. But I doubt that any of us will look back at our lives and think, I wish I'd bought an even thinner TV.
I'm still looking for your presence. You're so lost it can't be found, like all those times I now resent. I'm staying up late at night pretending I can hear your voice, though I wake up in the morning, swear to God it's not my choice. My heart beats, it pumps and pumps without a care if I desire it too. It's just a matter of time before I'm gonna die too. They don't know how much this hurts. Got blood all over my t-shirt. Had to break off of my counter. Promised them I would not deter. I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve. It's pouring out all over me. This can't be a good sign for me. I got you, no, I can't breathe, I'm choking. Cause all I got's a voicemail to get me through the day. No, it's not too late, but I just follow the cliche. And just like that, you're gone, leaving me with all the wrong I've done. Knowing you did not condone. I can't apologize no more. I take a step up to your grave. Get too close, my knees are caved. I'm so ashamed with all these tears in my eyes. My soul's enslaved. It's not a game, I'm sorry. I yelled and screamed when I didn't care. I could, I dare. It's just not fair. I feel the pain. This ain't what I stand for. To be all emotional, though I was never. No, I'm not approachable. Can't be delusional. This is not optional. Have to be rational. Got to be sociable. Years after you passed, I think I get how you were treated. Not a day goes by where I don't think about you or your missing pieces. There's not a rhyme in the world I can use to describe what it's like without you. It's like a noose on my neck and I feel like I gotta get loose, constricting. These snakes are swarming around me. I'm being framed like a marquee. Lost sight of my reality. I scream, where were you when I needed you? Taking a nap in the living room, and now you're up there in a place I cannot reach you. I'm losing sight of you. In lieu, I'm going cuckoo, just like that fucking kazoo. I wish that I could see you. It hurt deep down inside to know why I was afraid, kept dreaming all the damn time. Didn't get my chance to say goodbye. That's why I'm screaming tonight. And just like that, you're gone, leaving me with all the wrong I've done. Knowing you did not condone. I can't apologize no more. I take a step up to your grave. Get too close, my knees are caved. I'm so ashamed with all these tears in my eyes. My soul's enslaved. And just like that, you're gone, leaving me with all the wrong I've done. Knowing you did not condone. I can't apologize no more. I take a step up to your grave. Get too close, my knees are caved. It's such a shame with all these tears in my eyes. My soul's enslaved.
I was never able to find a bra that fits my small chest. For as long as I can remember, being small was something to be embarrassed about.
Get rolling, and I know there's a few people trickling in, but talking about creativity, my husband Jim made this just recently. So this past December, his father passed away, and it was unexpected, so it was pretty shocking. And talking about the negative emotions, guilt. So Maddie mentioned it. I think that's such a common emotion for people that are grieving to feel is, survivor's guilt, and just kind of general guilt. And Jim was he's okay with me talking about this. I got his permission. And he's an excellent son, and was very attentive and helpful and helping his dad. And but nonetheless, after his father had passed away, he was just feeling guilt, like I didn't do it enough. I wasn't a good enough son. And he, through his creativity, he went to his dad's shop. His dad had a hardwood shop, and picked out some special wood and crafted it very meticulously. This is an urn for his dad's ashes. And Jim wood burned the buck on there and then varnished it. And as he did that, a lot of hours on that labor of love, he was able to do a lot of processing. I just think it's so helpful to have like that dual attention where you're very focused on what you're doing, a labor of love for the person you've lost, and then your brain can just travel where it needs to travel. But Jim and I were talking in preparation for this forum, and he brought up a really good question. I don't have the answer, but why do we grieve so differently for different things? And I think that was part of his guilt too, because when our chocolate lab Bella died, Jim was a wreck, and he didn't have that same reaction with his father, or even with a super close friend. It is just super sad, but the display of emotion just very different. And we definitely could discuss what our theories are on that, but we don't need to do that. I just wanted to highlight that it's a thing, and we can't predict how we're going to grieve or how we're going to respond. There's really no way to predict that, but it's okay. Okay, so now I'll turn the mic over to Linda.
Okay. It will be 9 years this May that I received a phone call at work telling me that my husband had collapsed while working and was taken to the hospital. Upon arrival at the hospital, I learned he had a massive heart attack and passed away. He was 39, I was 36, and our daughter was 3. I can remember vividly the moment at the hospital where all of a sudden my future went black, like a curtain was dropped on a production. There was nothing there. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this alone? As a society, the norm is 3 to 5 days of bereavement. After those days, we are expected to resume some sort of normal. So we do. We head back to work, we begin making dinners, picking up our children from daycare or school, all while trying to deal with many different emotions. One of the biggest emotions we deal with is guilt. It was probably 3 months or so after his passing that I reached out to Cal for some help with my guilt. And all I kept thinking was, I could have done something. I should have done something. I had these thoughts in my mind, and they just kept playing over and over again. Through working with her and undergoing some EMDR, I was able to reframe my thoughts. I was able to put to rest the feeling of guilt I had around his passing, and I was also able to remember the happy times we had had just the day before. I didn't know at that point that the guilt would not end there. As we move forward, we feel guilt the first time we laugh again, the first time we paint a room in our house, the first time we go without thinking about them for more than a few hours, the first family picture we take without them, asking for help with your daughter, leaving your daughter with others, and thinking the entire time, I am her only parent, I should be with her. Being only 36 when he died, I was a young widow. I didn't know anyone my age who had passed or was a widow at my age. Wasn't anywhere of any place local to go, and at that time I believed my situation was so unique that no one could possibly understand what I was feeling. Which is true. Everyone's story is different, but some of the thoughts and feelings you experience are felt by others. The invisible losses, the survivor's guilt you feel, the fact that people will look at you differently for months, the people who fade away because dynamics have shifted, the anger and frustration that comes out of nowhere, the fear that you have frequently that something might happen to you as well. I remember a moment where I was trying to get ready for work, and my daughter was throwing the biggest fit because she didn't want to leave the house. She wouldn't come downstairs, she was crying, I was crying, and I was so frustrated. I called my mom and I said, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this, and I don't know what to do. She came over and talked us both down. It wasn't the last time I had to call her. We were both in the anger phase at this time. Her being 3 to 4 years old, that is how she expressed her frustration. People don't talk about grief openly. There is a fear of bringing up their name will cause you to crumble, that they're going to open up wounds if they mention anything about them. But having someone available to listen and say you aren't crazy, this is normal, is a lifesaver. I wish I had reached out to the few individuals I did know. I wish I knew that parts of grief are similar. I was turned on to a couple of Facebook groups that helped move me in a direction to begin life again. One of them really pushed me to open my mind and realize that I was still here for a reason. I needed to explore life and show my daughter life was meant to be lived. We adopted the phrase, "we can do hard things." In her book, Second First by Christina Rasmussen, she calls the place between your old life and your new life the waiting room. Slowly, I began tiptoeing out of this waiting room. I enrolled in a cake decorating class to expand my horizons and learn something new, and together my daughter and I began hiking. Taking steps like that was hard and very scary. She also mentions in her book the fact that we have 3 types of selves. Survivor self, the one that tells you, wait, don't do this or you can't do this, tends to place additional guilt on you, keeps you close to what is familiar. The watcher self, the one that stands back and observes everything around you, witnesses your whole life. Your thriver self, the one that is ready to go again and again. As I took these baby steps, I didn't really understand what was happening. My road was long, bumpy, and required a lot of work and patience. I finally got to a point maybe 2 years ago that I was able to look back and think, I did something. Look how far I have come. Today I realize that I learned more about myself than I ever expected, and I made it through the worst part. I have a better appreciation for all the tiny aspects of life. My daughter is great. She has a huge zest for life. She is okay, and I am okay, and we are both happy. The other quote I keep close again is by Christina Rasmussen. You can do the impossible because you have been through the unthinkable.
Linda made that beautiful cake. Isn't that amazing? Gorgeous. Plug for your business. Okay, so here's another piece of little education, psychoeducational. Complex bereavement, they call it, is a type of grief that prevents us from flowing through the stages of grief more fluidly, or they may not feel fluid, they may feel like all over the place, but it's where there's trauma that is involved with the loss. Stress, PTSD, trauma, all lead to complex bereavement. And they make the natural grieving process to be a challenge. What I did here is give a few examples of how you can tell is this trauma or is this grief? So with trauma, there's often a recurrent reliving of a negative aspect of the loss. So with grief, we're grieving the loss of someone or something over time, and it continues. With trauma, it's often an encapsulated aspect of the story. Sometimes with people, it's the moment of a diagnosis, or it's a phone call, things like that. A negative image feels stuck in your mind. So it's very natural, and it may not be the trauma to picture things, but over time, okay, that kind of calms down and you feel like you kind of move past that. With trauma, there's a negative image that I call it, like it haunts you. It keeps coming back, and with it makes you feel like you're reliving it again and again and again. There's also persistent negative beliefs about yourself. With EMDR therapy, one of the things we're looking at when we set up a trauma before we do reprocessing is we're looking at what's the negative belief that you have about yourself in this horrific image that you can't get out of your mind. And very frequently it's my fault, or I'm not safe, or I'm a bad person. So, right, that I didn't do enough, that kind of thing. It's normal to have those, and then you kind of move on, they roll along. With trauma, no, they're really stuck. And there's an inability to remember the positive images or experiences involving the person. Or like we're talking about with the window of tolerance, as soon as you start to remember, you get thrown out of your window right back to whatever the traumatically stored memory is. And Tina's story does a good job of talking about this. Come on up, Tina.
Okay. So, I'm just gonna get right into this. I decided to put this down in writing so I would not waver, go off topic a little bit. I wanted to make sure that I stuck to these points because I think they're very important. So my story starts with, it was the fall semester of graduate school and my first semester teaching at a local college, this college, and I found out that my mother had terminal brain cancer. Due to the severity, we were unsure. We didn't know how much time we might have. We didn't know how much time we would spend together. So I made the decision to withdraw from graduate school temporarily until the following year so I can spend time with my mother. Since we didn't know how much time we had, that seemed like the right direction, the right choice. So during that time, we spent a lot of time with family. We watched her favorite shows together. We had fall, small family dinner gatherings, summer cookouts, and let me tell you, my mom, all she wanted was for all of us to be together, like her family. You know, that was what is most important to her. So here she is, having exactly what she wanted her whole life. All of those months that we had together, she had us there, doting on her, spending time. So she was actually really happy. And during those 10 months, I had been reading all the literature about preparing for loss. I am also a therapist, I'm a social worker, so I was like, I got this. I know all of the avenues, I know all of the resources. Let me just find out all there is to know so I could prepare myself, I could prepare my mom, maybe I can help my family go through this process. So I was collaborating with her medical team, her social worker. I was also talking with family and friends that had lost loved ones, and I even attended some support groups. Again, I was a good social worker because I was doing all my research. So later on that year, during the summer, my mom began to decompensate, and she passed away the first week of September. Now, anybody who knows anything about school, college, September is usually right when everything starts back up. So I was back in school, in graduate school, and I was back teaching for that semester. And I was also doing a clinical internship, so I had so much going on during this time. The days and months that followed were a blur. I had returned to school, I was teaching, I was going through the day-to-day things that I needed to do to survive. I was on the go, I had little time for my mind to think of anything else. I would dream about my mother all the time. In my dreams, she was alive. I missed and yearned for her. Sometimes I was sad, sometimes I cried, but those feelings would come and go. I was so proud of myself because I was doing so well managing my grief. There was just one thing. Every time I tried to think of her, the only memory, the only image I could access of her was her very last time that I had with her, when that was right before she died. So over Christmas break, I had finally had time to relax and work on self-care and spend some time with loved ones. However, I was stuck. I wasn't able to do that. I couldn't do my usual day-to-day activities. I did not want to leave the house. I didn't want to see anyone. I was depressed. Some days I would just stare off for hours, and it was our first Christmas without my mom. I missed her. I had things I wanted to share with her about my life, about achievements, about things that were happening. When I thought of her, Again, the only memory, the only image I could access of her was that last time that we had together. My friend Kale reached out to me because she was concerned about me and wanted to help. Kale and I had worked together many years ago as therapists together, so we go back a little ways. So she shared that she had picked up on my pain through some of my angsty social media posts. She was able to pick up on that. She pointed out to me that she felt like I was stuck in the trauma of my mother's passing, and she had some ideas on how she could help. Cal had been using EMDR to help her clients process through traumatic memories for quite some time, and she offered to do EMDR with me free of charge to help me unlock some trauma that was getting me stuck. I attended, I think it was about 4 or 5 sessions with Cal. We chose to target that last image, that last memory I had of my last time with my mom, the moment that she died. What I was holding on to, but I did not realize, was the negative cognition or the negative belief that I associated with that last memory. Was that if I let go of that memory, then I might not have any memories. I might not be able to remember her at all. So it was so important for me to hang on to that, because what if that was the last one? So what I learned from EMDR was that I was clinging to that last image and memory because I was so afraid that I would lose all memory of her. I would lose her, and I had already lost her. EMDR helped me to decrease the physical and emotional disturbance I had related to this belief. I was able to understand that the belief was not true. The belief that if I let go of that image, I would forget her forever. I started having other memories of her. This is after I completed EMDR, and I would think of her. When this happened, I started getting back to my old personality and my old ways of life. I was able to have memories with my mother of when she was alive that were positive memories. My sleep improved, my mood improved, I became more social, I started reaching out to my loved ones more. The experience encouraged me to want to be able to help others through their own trauma and grief. I started to lead a student support group at the University of Buffalo where I attended, and then I became trained in EMDR. So in preparing for this presentation, I realized I still have some grief, some feelings that are unresolved. But it's okay because I know what to do with them now. I know how to get through them. I also want to point out that I have been a therapist for 22 years, and despite helping others through grief and loss and trauma every day and knowing all the resources that are out there, I didn't know everything, and I still don't. And I had to learn that I could not heal myself by myself. I needed help from other people. And that's okay. It's okay to need other people. So, my final thing that I would like to share is please be kind to yourself through your journey of grief. And don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself, and don't set yourself to a timeline, because you will heal it at the pace that you need to. Okay? Yeah. So, this picture was taken the night before my mom passed away. And who knew, that this, I didn't even know that this picture was taken. It was taken by, I think, by my sister. So this is something that I keep very close to my heart. And she was like patting me on the head, and she's like, I love you. It's gonna be okay. She was comforting me. That's how she was. So thank you for letting me share my story. And thank you, Kay. It's okay to not be okay.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, and the last bit of information, I'm sure everybody in here could come up with a doozy of what not to say, but it's such a difficult concept. And I guess the bottom line here is how important it is that you are present. And even if someone is trying to comfort you, you're the person grieving, and something is just, it's okay. I didn't put this up here, but I'm saying it now. It's okay to set a boundary or say, just excuse yourself, or even depending on what's said, just that's really not helpful. I appreciate your concern, but that's just not helpful to me right now. It's okay to set boundaries. And for all of us, I think we all just need reminders to be good listeners, like Maddie talked about, where we make assumptions or we project how we think somebody might be feeling. It's really better to ask, how are you feeling? What can I do, like you said, Maddie? Really just show up, and after the fact, a long time after the funeral. And like we've already talked about, don't be afraid to talk about the person who passed, and we can stretch the windows of love, joy, pride, and calm by sharing some stories about the person. Okay, so this is the last video. Oh my gosh, wouldn't it be terrible if at the end of this it's a bra commercial? It won't be. It's going to.
I don't think there's ads on this
I have
one.
trauma because I don't want it to happen again. But if it does, it does. But this is, thank you. Many of you have shared images with me, and Lindsay put this together, and we chose the music, and I think you're gonna find it beautiful. I hope you do. And then when it's over, we're all done. And please feel free to get more refreshments, and thank you so much, the person who will be unnamed right now, for making those cards. Feel free to take more cards, and the magnets, and feel free to connect with each other after the program. But thank you so much for your attention and for showing up. Thank you so much for showing up.
To my love, took it down, climbed a mountain and I turned around, and I saw my reflection in snow-covered hills, till the landslide brought me down. Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I Oh,